time and put it on your daily schedule on, let's say, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. If you put it on your calendar, and I mean literally put it on your calendar, that from 5:15 to 5:45, I'm going to be driving home, I'm going to stop by the grocery store, and I'm going to pick up my fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm going to go home and make dinner, and when I do, while I'm in the kitchen, I'm going to go ahead and prep my fruits and vegetables for tomorrow and the next day. Because on the 2 days later, on your way home, you're going to be hitting the grocery store again. I respect that eating raw food can be expensive, but it's no more expensive than junk food that comes out of a box. The only time fresh fruits and vegetables become expensive is when you throw them away. Your goal is on your second day, when you leave your house, that refrigerator is empty. Think about this. If your refrigerator is hitting a point of being empty on the end of the second day, you've eaten everything that you've bought, you've optimized your nutrition, you've made plenty of smoothies, you've made raw fruits and vegetable salads, you've garnished your lean protein sources with fresh fruits and vegetables, maybe a little sauteing, however you like to do it. Very important that you guys plan your day to not only buy your food, but to prepare your food. And then the third variable is to actually take time out of your day to sit and eat your food. We said this on the very first conference call. If you don't make time to consume your food, you're not going to chew your food. If you don't chew your food, you're not getting the nutritious value out of the food. You go, well, wait a second, don't we absorb our nutrients in our belly? Yes, but you don't want to put chunks of food down in your belly and require the digestive juices to break it all down. Your teeth, called grinders, are designed to break down the food. Your saliva interacts with it, creates a metabolic process, and that creates conversion where your body will start absorbing nutrients and vitamins right inside your mouth. When we get inside your mouth, that's why you'll notice when you take a supplement or your physician gives you something to take orally, they have you put it under your tongue. That's called a sublingual. A sublingual absorbs quicker because it is absorbed in the mouth versus the digestive tract into the gut. Think about your belly. Your belly has a bunch of gastric juices in it. It's just a game of dilution. The more that sits in there, and then you load up a bunch of fluid, what you're doing is you're diluting it, and then you're not going to get as much nutrient value. That's why if you guys pay attention to our meals and snacks that I send you every week, you're going to notice that I ask you to not overhydrate. I even ask you to not drink during your meals because I don't want you diluting, literally, I don't want you diluting the nutrients that sit in your belly. So that's very important that you guys remember that. But remember, the goal here is to make sure that it's as ripe as possible. And if you can afford the organic and it's readily available, go ahead and do it. You're never going to hurt yourself by doing that. Okay? So at this point, you guys have what we call our personalized nutrition and hydration program. You have your 10 or 15 items that you've extracted over your food logs. Okay? Now, the question that comes up quite often is, well, do I need to keep a food log every week? Well, yes and no. As a rule of thumb, what we just talked about, if you're introducing something new, I would like you to write it down and evaluate its results on your mental clarity, your energy, and your performance if relevant. Why? Because I've had individuals who will add something to their what we call your food portfolio, what you eat, what does your food menus look like? They add something in, they don't write it down, and then all of a sudden, over the course of 3 or 4 days, I get an email or a phone call, I'm feeling real lethargic, my energy levels are down. Well, my question is going to be very simple, what's changed? Well, if you added something, as I shared with you guys last week, we had somebody who had an adverse reaction to the artificial sweetener that was in a coffee creamer that was causing her to be lethargic. But because she only added coffee and coffee creamer, she added it for 1 week, and at the end of the week we were able to identify what was making her lethargic because she only added one thing. The thing that I want you guys to understand is you need to be that detail-oriented, because if you add 6 things in a day and you have a negative reaction to it, it may not be one item, it might be the interaction of 2 or more of those items, and then it becomes a statistical nightmare. It's a runaway train. Because what you're not understanding is item A is interacting with item B, and the end result of that is low energy. where if you'd only eaten item A by itself, may not have been a problem. Item B by itself, not a problem, but the two together, not good. Well, we don't know because you combined too many at one time. So now that you look at your food logs and you've extracted and you've created your portfolio, I want you to only add one new item a week if possible. For some of you that would take too long and you don't like that. Great. Add one item every 2 days. The most important takeaway is look at your mental clarity, your energy, and your performance. It's either improving your performance and mental clarity or it's not. Remember what we talked about. This program is very cut and dry, zeros and ones. It's either improving or it's not. There is no middle ground. So the more you pay attention to small details, the easier it is for you to identify whether something's working or not. When we start talking next week about performance, because next week is going to be reassessments, okay? We're going to go back and you're going to complete those assessments you did on week 1. If your performance is improving, if you're noticing your endurance is going up, if you notice your power output is going up, it's a direct correlation of what you've eaten. And I know this may offend some of you, but it's not about the strength training that you've been doing for 3 weeks. It's the food and the sleep that you've done, the food and the sleep that you've consumed that's improved the body as it relates to performance, not the other way around. I've teased you guys about this before. We live in a world of motors, okay? If I have a big, powerful motor and I have no fuel, that motor sitting on the starting gate is just that. It's just a motor. But if there's no fuel flowing through it, I never get a chance to see what that bike, what that motorcycle or quad are made of. And I want you guys to think about it the same way. It'd be a heck of a note for you guys to train 6-7 months and get to these big national championships, only to go to the starting gate on empty because, oh gosh, I was so busy getting to the race, I never really thought about what I should be eating the morning of, the day of, the week of a national championship. And unfortunately, guys, it's too late. That's why we're starting now. That's why we start in January. August seems like it's a long way away, but you can already see we're 4 weeks into the program. You're getting ready to start week number 5. We're going to go back. We're going to baseline measure. That's why I had you take your measurements this week, is because I don't want you to get false numbers that if you were to take your body measurements during a week of testing, there's a lot of inflammation and swelling where you're going to retain water. That's why we take body measurements on your rest weeks. We test a week. The week after a rest and recovery week, we always come back in with testing and assessments because your body's fresh. Now, next week, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about blood chemistry and what the benefits of this week were in regards to lowering the intensity and bringing the volume down as a whole. And we're going to get into a little bit of chemistry next week. I don't want you checking out on me. Even if you don't like science and math, I promise you won't have to do any calculations. But what I do want you to understand is inside the chemistry of the blood is where all of your energy comes from. And I'm not going to go any further than that, except understanding that when you continue to eat, that's why I put it in your email, please don't back off on your food just because you've backed off on your intensity. Don't back off on food because you've backed off on volume. Remember what we said at the beginning of this call tonight. Most athletes are running in a deficiency mode all the time anyways. So when you add training on top of if a baseline of deficiency comes in and then you add on top of it workload, the net is a loss. So during a rest and recovery week, we bring the volume and the intensity down, and we want you to overeat in regards to nutrients and vitamins to get the chemistry of your blood back up to normal. Okay? I'm going to give you an example. I spoke with one of the top Supercross pros yesterday. The name is not something that I can disclose. He's running top 5 right now. He got a virus after Anaheim 1, and he's been not able to ride during the week for the last 3 weeks because he's got a bronchial infection. Okay, this is a gentleman who was working with another human performance coach for the last 2 years. They just parted ways. And the first thing I said to him is, I said, do you have any blood work? He says, yes, I do. So he sent me his blood work. I said, can you send me your food logs? Yes, I have my food logs. He sends them to me. To make a long story very short, all of his blood chemistry was what we call in a depressed, suppressed mode. His HBC counts, his white blood cell count, his red blood cell count, RBC, all of those were down. We looked at his food log. He was living on 1,100 calories a day was on the motorcycle for 2 hours a day and was training, cross-training 12 hours a week. Now, what I want you guys to realize is this is a top pro that you guys watch on TV. This is somebody who you guys would all respect, and you would think that he's got it dialed because he's on television and he's out of a big rig. What you have to understand is 99.99% of your competition doesn't know this, and when they do know it, I want to plug my ears and act like I didn't hear it, because it requires self-responsibility and dedication. Our team is trying to give you all the tools. Our web development team is continuing to post new menus and recipes. We're trying to get those up as quickly as we can. We're trying to give you new meals and snack suggestions every week so you don't get bored. We're constantly trying to produce new supplements and products that's going to improve your performance, that only should be brought in after you're eating real fruits and vegetables. What I'm trying to get across to you is looking at your notes, looking at your food logs. This is why we call our system is called the blueprint of success. Find out what's working, keep doing it. Find out what's not working and eliminate it. I've got individuals that are calling me asking what do they do. They're scared to death. They're at their top of their game. They don't know what to eat. They don't know how much to eat. And like I said, I've got blood results that I could show you, and all of the blood chemistry was down. That's why you're doing a low volume week, is to get the internals of your blood chemistry up. Cytochrome C, creatine, etc. And we're going to talk about that more extensively next week. Are there any questions about the things that we've spoken about tonight? At this point, I've gone through all my notes, so I'm going to open up the floor. Again, please, just so that we can keep the recording clean. It seemed like we got some reverberation there when some of the phones went on to unmute. So please unmute, ask your question, and then remute, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have at this point.
Hey, Coach Rob.
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, what was like for like a 2-day weekend race? What should we do like before race days? So, like during the week and stuff.
Yeah, this is a question that we get quite often, and that was asked in a fantastic way. And I'm not going to answer it with any sense of sarcasm. I want you to think about this. Last weekend, you went out and you rode, and you performed real well. And then maybe the next day you had the opportunity to ride again. The thing I want you to think about is when it's a typical Saturday or Sunday, you just go about eating your normal food, and then you load up, you go to the track and you ride, maybe 1 day, maybe 2 days, and you head back home. What I always want to ask you is, how did you perform? Did you perform well? Did you get tired? Were your laps consistent? These are all the human performance components that we're going to start talking about next week. And what I want to do to answer your question is, answer it with saying, keep doing what you're doing during the week, because you're proving to yourself that your body responds and performs well. Just because it's Saturday and it happens to be on a calendar, a championship day or a high-profile race, you keep doing what you've proven in training works. You don't do anything exotic, because your body doesn't say, and this is how we poke a hole in the whole carbo-loading fallacy. Your body does not know if it's January 1st, February 8th, or whether it's August 17th. You don't need to be changing your food because your body doesn't have a clock. It's not going to digest and assimilate calories differently because you're parked at a certain track with a certain priority attached to that race. Keep eating what you normally eat. That's why I said to you earlier, I want you to have the confidence during race weekend and race week to know how much to eat, when to eat, and more importantly, have the confidence of knowing what that's going to do to your speed and endurance out on the track. Remember, your speed and your endurance is a byproduct of what you eat. So, when in doubt, look at your food log, look at your performance results, look at your portfolio of food, go to the race weekend or week with exactly those food logs, your portfolio of menus, and here's the big catch. Even when you're at the race weekend, you want to eat every 2 hours. Why? Because that's how you've programmed your body. You know your body's going to perform optimally eating every 2 hours, because that's going to maintain your blood sugar level.